Good day everyone, this is Engineer Aljan Michael G. Sabak and I welcome you to our Session 5 discussion about Earth science. Last time we have discussed the things about our universe and the solar system. We have learned about the different underlying theories that comprises both. Today, we will now fly to our own planet Earth. We will be dealing with the Earth spheres, its structures and also its interactions. Earth is the only planet in the solar system capable of supporting life. Complex and brilliant combination of gases, composition and structure of Earth are some of the reasons why it can sustain life. Earth is a very complex place and it is the fifth largest of the planets in the solar system. It's smaller than the four gas giants: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, but larger than the three other rocky planets: Mercury, Mars and Venus. The name Earth is at least 1,000 years old. All of the planets, except for Earth, were named after Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. However, the name Earth is a Germanic word, which simply means the ground. The Greek equivalent to Earth is Gaia or Terra Mater, which means Mother Earth. And Roman equivalent was Tellus, that means fertile soil. The Earth consists of four distinct yet connected spheres. All of the processes on Earth are driven by four spheres, which we describe individually, but are really all connected. So what are these different spheres? On the image we see the following key elements that represents Earth mainly: air, water, land, and life. These key elements comprises of what is Earth today and even in the past and also in the future. And because of these key elements, our Earth won't be the Earth as we see it and observe today. Now, we will be talking mainly about these following spheres: the atmosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere and biosphere. And all of these spheres are part of the Earth system. We have the four spheres of the Earth respectively. The atmosphere is the part of the Earth system that includes the mixture of gases that surrounds the planet. The geosphere is the part of which includes the internal layers of the Earth, which are the crust, mantle and the core. The hydrosphere on the other hand is the part on which talks about the planet's water, including the surface waters, groundwater, ice, salt water and water vapor. Lastly, we have the biosphere that includes all the living things including plants, animals and other organisms. Alright, let's discover these spheres one by one. Let's start with the geosphere. When we hear the word geosphere, we automatically image the layers of the Earth, right? That is correct. The geosphere describes all of the rocks, minerals and ground that are found on and in Earth. The geosphere is divided into three main parts: the crust, mantle, and core. This includes all of the mountains on the surface, as well as all of the liquid rock in the mantle below us and the minerals and metals of the outer and inner core. The continents, the ocean floor, all of the rocks on the surface, and all of the sand in the deserts are all considered part of the geosphere. Basically, if it looks like solid ground, it's part of the ground sphere. With respect to the geosphere, we suddenly remember Toph Beifong from the Avatar that hurtles rocks away from its enemies. This time let's recall the internal layers of the Earth, or basically its inner structure. The planet Earth is made up of different layers: the very thin, brittle crust, the mantle, and the core. The mantle and core are each divided into two parts. Although the core and mantle are about equal in thickness, the core actually forms only 15% of the Earth's volume, whereas the mantle occupies 84% and the crust makes up the remaining 1%. We also have the Gutenberg discontinuity that boundaries the outer core from the lower mantle, and the Mohorovičić discontinuity, or what we call MOHO, that boundaries also the upper mantle and the crust. What's making it more interesting is that each of these layers has its own different physical characteristics and composition. Layers on the left side of the table are based on the differences in composition of each layers, of which the crust is composed primarily of silica plus light metallic elements. As you go below, it will still be made of silica, but iron and magnesium will now be present. And lastly, the core is made up of iron and nickel. On the other side of the table are its mechanical or physical characteristics. We can observe that the lithosphere is composed of brittle solid part, and underneath it is a plastic, a solid yet nearly liquid, asthenosphere. The lower mantle, historically known as the mesosphere, is composed of a solid structure. As we go inside, we will meet the outer core that is in liquid state and the inner core that is a solid one. Again, the geosphere is the sphere that is mostly solid and the rocky part of the Earth that includes volcanoes, rocks, minerals, coal, oil and the land itself. From the surface we have the crust that is a thin, outermost layer that is made of silicate minerals. The crust is the outermost part of the Earth and is very thin compared to the other layers. It is a part where the living organisms dwell in. It forms a very thin continuous layer that extends underneath the ocean and continents. That is why we have two types of crust, the oceanic that is 5 to 10 kilometers thick and the continental crust that is 35 to 70 kilometers thick. The continental crust is mostly composed of different types of granites, a type of rock. Geologists often refer to the rocks of the continental crust as Sial, which stands for silicate and aluminum, the most abundant minerals in continental crust. On the other hand, we have the oceanic crust, which is mostly composed of different types of basalts. Rocks of the oceanic crust are referred to as sima, which stands for silicate and magnesium, the most abundant minerals in oceanic crust. And the oldest of which are called cratons, and it is the most stable part of the continental lithosphere that are found deep in the interior of most continents. We'll jump now to the mantle. This is the part of the Earth that is the mostly solid bulk of Earth's interior that is made of very slow-flowing, solid rock consisting of silicate minerals that are denser than in the crust. The mantle lies between Earth's dense, superheated core and its thin outer layer, the crust. It is made up of silicates, magnesium oxide, iron, aluminum, calcium, sodium, and potassium, and it is divided into two layers: the upper mantle and the lower mantle. Earth's crust floats on the mantle much as a piece of wood floats on water. The slow motion of rock in the mantle shuffles continents around and causes earthquakes, volcanoes and the formation of mountain ranges. Below the mantle is the Earth's core that is about 7,100 kilometers wide and 3,500 kilometers in radius, which is the dense center and hottest part of Earth. The core is made almost entirely of iron and nickel. The outer core is the liquid layer of 2,260 kilometers thick. The core is responsible for the planet's magnetic field, which helps to deflect harmful charged particles shot from the sun. And it is in this layer that we can find the movement of metallic iron that generates Earth's magnetic field. The inner core also is a hot, dense ball of iron, since the temperature of the inner core is far above the melting point of iron. Despite its higher temperature, the iron in the inner core is solid due to the immense pressures that exist in the center of the planet. So what are the roles of the geosphere? What does it contribute to the Earth system as a whole? The geosphere is very important since it is the contributor of particulate matter and atmospheric gases to the atmosphere, and also a contributor of salts to the ocean to maintain its salinity. Also, it is the ultimate source of nutrients for all living things. Because our plates are moving, the geosphere produces barriers that aid in the isolation of population of organism, therefore influences evolution. The geosphere is very important since it is the contributor of particulate matter and atmospheric gases to the atmosphere, and also a contributor of salts to the ocean to maintain its salinity. Also, it is the ultimate source of nutrients for all living things. Because our plates are moving, the geosphere produces barriers that aid in the isolation of population of organism, therefore influences evolution. Planet Earth has been called the blue planet Due to the abundant water on its surface, over 71% of the surface area of the Earth is covered by water. All the Earth's water, solid or in liquid form, those that are contained in glaciers, rocks, soil and the air, comprise the Earth's hydrosphere. By its definition, the hydrosphere is the part of Earth that is liquid water. About 97% of Earth's water exists as salt water, while the remaining 3% is freshwater contained in glaciers, lakes and rivers, and beneath Earth's surface as groundwater. Only a fraction of Earth's total amount of freshwater is in lakes and rivers. Water on Earth is constantly moving. It even moves into and out of living things, like we need water to live and we excrete it afterwards. When we say about the water is moving, we are talking mainly about the hydrologic cycle. Water on Earth is continuously moving. It endlessly circulating through the hydrologic cycle. As water goes in a cycle, it changes its states. From liquid to ice to gas and back again. Sun heats water, causing the water to evaporate. Rising air currents take the water vapor up in the atmosphere. The vapor rises into the air where cooler temperatures cause it to condense into clouds. Air currents move the cloud. Cloud particles collide, grow, and fall out of the sky as precipitation. Most of the precipitation return to the oceans. And because of this water cycle, it generates the different sources of water here on Earth, that includes the surface water and the groundwater. Surface water includes the ocean as well as water from lakes, rivers and creeks, while the groundwater includes water trapped in the soil, and we have also frozen water that is trapped in the ice caps and glaciers. Only 3% of the water distribution are freshwater, while 97% of which are salt water. That's why we need to conserve every water that we will use in order to sustain humanity. We have also this frozen water region that is also called the Cryosphere, on where snow, ice, sea ice, glaciers, ice shelves, icebergs, and permafrost are all part of it. Same with the Geosphere. The Hydrosphere also is vital and important, since it is the one who moderates every climate on Earth. It also transfers heat and energy. Living organisms also need water to transport nutrients and waste in order to survive. Water overall is essential in many of the Earth's processes, from mineral formation below the ground to everything that it touches on the surface. We have the third one, and that is the atmosphere. This is a very huge envelope of air that surrounds the Earth and pulled by the gravitational force of the Earth. The Earth's atmosphere is primarily composed of 78% nitrogen and 21% of oxygen. Other gases like argon, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, hydrogen, helium and other inert gases make up the remaining 1%. Earth's atmosphere provides oxygen for living things, protects Earth's inhabitants from harmful radiation from the sun, and helps to keep the planet at a temperature suitable for life, since it traps some energy from the sun, which helps keep Earth warm enough for living things to survive and multiply. Some gases of the atmosphere absorb and reflect harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun, protecting Earth and its living things. The atmosphere also causes space debris to burn up before reaching Earth's surface and causing harm, so basically it is a defense barrier mechanism that protects us from visitors outside. The atmosphere reaches over 350 miles up from the surface of the Earth. It is made up of different layers as shown in the image. The lowest layer is what we call the troposphere, from the word tropo meaning change, thus it is the part of the atmosphere on where there is weather and there are changes in the atmosphere itself. This is the part on which air is closest to Earth. This is the area on which we live and where weather is formed. Airplanes and other aircrafts fly at the top of it. It is located 0 to 10 kilometers from the ground surfaces. The next layer is the stratosphere, from the word strato meaning layer or level. This layer lies above the Earth's weather and mostly changes very little. It contains the ozone layer, which shields us from the sun's ultraviolet radiation except where it's been harmed by man-made chemicals. Above the stratosphere we can find the mesosphere. This is the coldest layer and meteorites break apart here. This is where diffused atmospheric components are found. Thermosphere, the next layer, lies above mesosphere. It is 5 times as deep as all other layers combined, and it is a very hot layer that holds up to 2000 degrees Celsius because as you go farther away from the ground the atmosphere will become thinner. Lastly, we have the exosphere, from the word exo meaning outside. This is the part where satellites circle the Earth, and this is beyond 300 miles above the surface of the Earth. Like the Geosphere and Hydrosphere, the atmosphere serves as a barrier that protects the Earth from outside visitors. It acts like a shield that disintegrates every object that is coming inside of the planet. One thing is that it contains the gases that living things need for survival. For example, carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and oxygen for respiration. It also transfers heat that is coming from the sun. The ozone layer that is found on the stratosphere protects living things from excess harmful ultraviolet radiation. Lastly, it plays a part in weathering and erosion on the surface of the Earth. The least we don't forget is the part on which life is located. We have the biosphere. The biosphere is where all forms of life exist. Since life exists in the air, in water and on the ground, its boundaries overlap other sphere, because life can be found everywhere on Earth. The biosphere is sometimes thought of as one large ecosystem, a complex community of living and non-living things functioning as a single unit. It includes all organisms on Earth as well as the environments in which they live. Most organisms live within a few meters of Earth's surface, but some exist deep beneath the ocean's surface, and others live high atop Earth's mountains. All of Earth's life forms require interaction with at least one of the other systems for their survival. Because of this, the biosphere is structured into a hierarchy known as a food chain, on which energy and nutrients, like carbon, are transferred from one level of the food chain to the next. Here in the biosphere, it aids in weathering and an important sink for certain elements, especially carbon. It also mediates the formation of some minerals, and processes like photosynthesis maintains the oxygen content of the atmosphere for the living things to survive. In the smallest sense, we can call the biosphere as our home. With all these spheres that interact with our planet, we can conclude that our own planet is a complex system made of living and non-living things, and matter and energy continuously cycle through the smaller systems. The Earth system includes all of the matter, energy, and processes within Earth's boundary, and these are groups of related objects or parts that work together to form a whole. Which means it cannot stand alone, and it needs the other sphere to make the others work. In short, all of these spheres are interconnected, and it acts like a clockwork. Now, let's try to relate it with the present time. Based on the image below, why do you think Earth as a system works like a clockwork? What will happen if one gear will not work? What will be the consequences? Cite some examples that are happening in the present. I will just going to leave this activity to you for you to ponder upon yourself. Why do we need to protect our Earth? And on the next discussion, let's try to investigate further the interconnectedness of the 4 spheres and how does each sphere interact with the others. That's all for today. See you on our next discussion. I hope you have learned something from it. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.